واذكر في الكتاب مريم إذ انتبذت من أهلها مكانا شرقيا فاتخذت من دونهم حجابا فأرسلنا إليها روحنا فتمثل لها بشرا سويا قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت تقيا قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا قالت أنى يكون لي غلام ولم يمسسني بشر ولم أك بغيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين ولنجعله آية للناس ورحمة منا وكان أمرا مقضيا فحملته فانتبذت به مكانا قصيا فأجاءها المخاض إلى جذع النخلة قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا وكنت نسيا منسيا فناداها من تحتها ألا تحزني قد جعل ربك تحتك سريا وهزي إليك بجذع النخلة تساقط عليك رطبا جنيا فكلي واشربي وقري عينا فإما ترين من البشر أحدا فقولي إني نذرت للرحمن صوما فلن أكلم اليوم إنسيا فأتت به قومها تحمله قالوا يا مريم لقد جئت شيئا فريا يا أخت هارون ما كان أبوك امرأ سوء وما كانت أمك بغيا فأشارت إليه قالوا كيف نكلم من كان في المهد صبيا قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما دمت حيا وبرا بوالدتي ولم يجعلني جبارا شقيا والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا صدق الله العظيم.
Takbir. So Ahbab, inshallah, your mashayikh that are on your bus will speak more about this story, inshallah, on the bus and the drive back. We have an hour and a half. I want to mention 3 points. 3 points, inshallah, that we can remember from this story and from this journey. Point number 1, this journey of the birth of Isa alayhi salam did not begin from Maryam. It began from her parents. This journey began from Elishba or Elizabeth and Imran, the father of Maryam, though he wasn't alive when she was born. إذ قالت امرأة عمران ربي إني نذرت لك ما في بطني محررا فتقبل مني. When the mother of Maryam and her husband agreed that if Allah gives us a child, we will give this child to the masjid, meaning the temple, synagogue. This child will be dedicated to serve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they made this dua and say, Allah, please give us a child. فَلَمَّا وَضَعَتْهَا, and when she gave birth, she saw the child was a girl. And she said, Ya Rabbi, inni wada'atuha untha. I gave birth to a daughter, and I thought I was going to receive a son, because at that time only a son could be dedicated to the masjid or to the synagogue. Allah says, of course, I know who you gave birth. Wallahu a'lam bima wada'at. I know exactly what happened. And the story of Maryam's birth begins, but it started from her mother and her parent and her father Imran. So whatever we see in Isa alayhi salam is by extension an acceptance of a dua of Maryam's mother. the grandmother of Isa, which is Al-Ishba. What we learn from this is, though at times people will get noticed for what they're doing, there's a lot that's happening behind the scenes that allow that to take place. And if it wasn't for that, which was behind the scenes, there would be no tree for us to take fruits from. The seed can only be planted by those who are selfless enough to realize that they may never be able to benefit from that tree. No one else can really plant a seed. Because if everyone that wants to benefit from the tree plants a tree, we won't have any trees. Because it takes time for them to grow. This is why Ghazali, rahimahullah, Imam Ghazali, he would say, he's written the book Ihya al-Ulum, next to it, near Masjid al-Aqsa, actually in Masjid al-Aqsa compound. He would say that a believer can either be a farmer or a gardener. And he would give many analogies, that's what he's known for. He would say a believer could either be a farmer or a gardener. And I'll ask you guys, which one do you think is preferred? A farmer or a gardener?
Gardener.
Farmer?
Gardener.
Who says farmer? Raise your hand. Don't be sad now. Don't be shy.
Oh, good.
Okay. Gardener? Gardener?
Gardener.
Some of you guys are not raising your hands at all. You have to have one. You have to either be male or female. Can't be neither.
Gardener.
This is not America. Over here you get stoned. Right? No. So he says that the preferred, a believer by default should be a gardener. They have similarities. What are the similarities? Similarities is that they both plant seeds.
Right.
Similarities is that they both work on their land. Similarity is that they both will harvest something. But the difference is that a farmer, when he or she plants, they plant expecting to be able to benefit from that same year. And if they don't benefit from it, that is literally what you call a failure. This is why a farmer in Arabic is called fallah, min al-falah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Success. Because if the harvest doesn't grow and cultivate, that is a failure. Because 1 year passed by and I received nothing from it. Whereas a gardener knows that me planting this tree will take at least 10 years, 8 years, 12 years for something to grow from here, but that person still plants. And they still make an effort. And that is what a believer should be doing. So the story of Isa is a demonstration of a mother's dua being accepted. And that is the dua of Elizabeth. Though, and I want you to reflect on this. Just think about this. Look at how many natural phenomenons Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compromised for one mother's dua to be accepted. One mother's dua. She made a dua. She was given Maryam at an elderly age without Imran being around. Allah gifted her Zakaria alayhi salam to take care of her. Allah made Maryam the greatest, amongst the greatest women that the world has ever seen. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانَتْ مِنَ الْقَانِتِينَ. She is amongst those that should be followed, not only by women but also by men. Her dedication, her commitment to deen is to be followed by men and women. So she is born, she lives in the masjid or temple, or synagogue rather, and Allah compromises the phenomena of having a father for Isa. So this dua of the mother is accepted. Behind the scenes, everyone. What really matters is what we're doing behind the scenes for our deen. Not only what we're doing in front of people. There's two things that can enter into a person that can totally destroy our worship. Two things. One is called the riya. Anyone know what riya is? Ostentation, showing off. And this happens when a person only does good deeds in public. Right? That's all they do. This it naturally creates a sense of showing off. The other is ujub. Ujub is becoming a narcissist. This happens when a person only does good deeds in private. So in order for a person to mitigate the challenges of both, they must have a presence of good deeds in public and in private, behind the scenes. How many times have we made dua for someone behind the scenes? How many times have we given sadaqah for someone behind the scenes without them knowing? How many times have we helped someone without anyone else knowing about it? إِنَّ اللَّهَ فِي عَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. Allah will continue supporting us as believers as long as we support one another. That is the beauty of this story, that this home or this place, however the Christians see it to be, for us it doesn't really matter where we are. إِنَّ أَرْضَ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةٌ فَإِيَّايَ فَاعْبُدُونَ. The entire world is Allah's world. جُعِلَتْ لِي الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطُهُورًا. All of this belongs to Allah, which belongs to us. يَرِثُهَا مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. All of it belongs to us. But the reality is, what are we doing with it? Many people speak about land, but what are we doing on that land? Many people speak about, why don't we have a land? But when we have one, are we praying in our home? How Iqbal says in a beautiful poem, he says, Tera sajda tujhe kafir na kar de Iqbal. Tu jukta kahin aur rahe aur sochta kahin aur rahe. He says, do not let your sajda, your prayer, make you into a disbeliever, O Iqbal. That you bow in one place, but your mind is completely immersed by something else. What type of sajda is that? He says, Jo misar ba sajda hua kabhi, to zameen se aane lagi ye sada, tera dil hai to sanam ashana, tujhe kya milega namaz mein? He says that when I perform sajda, and my head touches the ground, the earth begins to speak, figuratively saying that your heart is filled with idols. Meaning your heart is filled with the love of everything else and everyone else. What are we going to achieve from that prayer? When the Prophet ﷺ will speak about sajda, the sajda was such that it was able to change not only people, it was able to conquer countries. At the Battle of Khandaq, when the Sahabas were attempting to break a rock, and they were unable to do so, and every one of them tried. The Prophet ﷺ came, and he took a staff or a stick, and he hit the rock in the boulder, and the first time he hit it, he said, Futiha Kaysar. And they said, Takbir Allahu Akbar. He hit it the second time, he said, Futiha Sham. He hit it the third time, and one narration he says, Futiha al-Misr. And another narration, Kisra. So each time he hit it, he referred to a different country, a different nation. And the munafiqs that were there were quite perplexed. That, you can hardly take care of your own city. Forget about the world. But they understood that by this effort of mine that is so minimal, Allah can bring deen to another corner of the world. Because I'm taking care of my ibadah and my worship, right? First part of the story is that there was a hidden part that allowed us to see what we saw. Someone planted that seed for that tree to be grown. Someone made dua for us to be here today. Someone made an effort for us to be Muslims. If you're from the Desi subcontinent region, many people had a hand in it. Muhammad ibn Qasim al-Thaqafi had a hand in it. Many people had a hand in Islam coming to Palestine, Abu Ubaid ibn Jarrah, to Misr, Amr ibn As, to the North African region of Tariq ibn Ziyad. People made an effort for us to be Muslims. What effort are we making for people? For them to be Muslim and for our children to remain Muslim. The worst thing that we could do is to expect by default our children will be Muslims in America. That's the worst thing that we could do. There's no default in this, right? There's an effort that needs to be made. If we're not making an effort, someone's making an effort upon us. Second lesson that we can take from this story, which is also an important lesson for all of us, is what I spoke about on the bus yesterday, and I'll speak about it for 2 minutes. قَالَ كَذَلِكَ. قَالَ كَذَلِكَ means whatever Allah wishes to happen, it will happen. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Nothing else can take place except for that which Allah wills. And how Allah does it is كَذَلِكَ. Is having a child without a mother كَذَلِكَ? Let me ask you a simple question. كَذَلِكَ, if someone comes to me and says, I want food, right? And I say, just like that. What does that normally mean for a person? It means that I'll go tell someone or I'll go grab food from the restaurant. That's what كَذَلِكَ means. كَذَلِكَ means that I'll use the most orthodox means to give you what you wish to have. Imam Razi speaks about what كَذَلِكَ means over here. كَذَلِكَ means whichever means is used primarily for this, I will use those means. كَذَلِكَ doesn't mean that I will use an unorthodox means. But the reality for Allah is there's no such thing as abnormal, unorthodox, supernatural, because all of it is normal for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So كَذَلِكَ, if a person is sitting here, if you're not able to get married, كَذَلِكَ, make dua, Allah will get us married. If a person is sitting here, they can't find a job, كَذَلِكَ, Allah can take care of that. Have children, كَذَلِكَ, Allah will take care of that. Every single thing for Allah is كَذَلِكَ. It's very simple for Allah to get done as long as we have that type of yaqeen, and there is wisdom in Allah helping us. There is wisdom in Allah giving and restraining. Both of those have wisdoms. And the last thing, and I'll end with this, is whenever we commit ourselves to this faith, we will always face the same response as every single person that came before us, which is a certain challenge, which is a response that we were not prepared for. When the Prophet received Nabuwah, and he came to Khadija, I'm just rushing through the story, and Khadija took him to Waraqah ibn Nawfal, who was her cousin. Waraqah, one of the first things that he said to the Prophet is that I wish I was alive on that day that your nation would remove you from the city. And the Prophet was completely stunned by this prophecy. He said, "Awa mukhrijiyahum?" Like, will they remove me from my city? Is that even an option? Like, I am the son of this city. Ibrahim is my father. Abdul Muttalib is my grandfather. You're telling me they're going to take me out of the city? Yeah, well, they are. And that's exactly what happened. Any person that decides to bring change for the sake of deen will always have some form of a response. You go back home, you start going to the masjid once a day. People will say things to you. What's wrong with you, man? You become too pious. We go back to our country. Again, this trip, it's not supposed to be a trip of information. It's supposed to be a trip of transformation. And if it's not, that means we failed you all. It's supposed to transform us for the betterment of our deen and our society, not just our information. You could read this on an article and watch this on a YouTube video. We came to change our lives and to bring deen into our life, right? So definitely there'll be a challenge. The Prophet received it. Maryam alayhi salam received it. She came, and she is the daughter of the church, synagogue. Literally, everyone loves Maryam. Everyone loves Maryam till this point. They had to do a lot. They had to pull a lot, qura, to find out who will be chosen to take care of her, because there were so many people who wanted to have the honor to be responsible for her guardianship. Everyone loves Maryam. You think people love us? Like, do we actually think people love us more than the people of Palestine at that time loved Maryam? Absolutely not. She was beloved by her people. But the moment she came with something different, the response changed instantaneously. Ya ukhta Harun, ma kana abuki imra'a saw, wa ma kanat ummuki baghiya. What is this, oh sister of Harun? We spoke about this on the bus. And before that, they say, Fariya, what a heinous crime. What a audacious crime you've committed. How could you do such a thing? The script will flip if at times we make changes for deen. But we're okay with that. It's a natural reaction. Every transition in life creates anxiety. Person before getting married, they're okay. As they're getting married, anxiety kicks in. Cold feet, because it's a transition. A person that was doing their bachelor's, now they're applying for grad school. Anxiety kicks in. Transition. A father and mother don't have children. Now they're receiving the birth of a child. Transition creates anxiety. Every single transition in life creates anxiety. That's a part of life. So just because that transition in deen creates anxiety is no different. And the last thing I'll say, my dear friends, what is the greatest blessing we have in our life? Quickly, Bismillah. Islam, Iman, okay. Every single blessing, based upon how great it is, has an equal level of a challenge and a burden. I'll give you a simple example. Outside of Iman, what else is a blessing? Children. Children are a blessing. Allah says that amongst the greatest blessings of life are children. However, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ أَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. The greatest burden is also from children. But has anyone ever said that children are not a blessing? No one has. Though they understand the capacity of a burden children create in their lives, but they still accept the fact that children are a blessing, because every blessing comes with a burden, and it comes with an equal challenge. And we don't avoid the blessing because of the challenge. We still wish to have. What else is a blessing? Parents. Parents have challenges? Absolutely. Okay, what else is a blessing? Health. We pay more for our health care than we do for the majority of our things in our life. What else is a blessing? Money. Money is a blessing. People pay more to protect their money than they do to earn their money. They work harder. Education. How many youngsters do we know in our country, in America, in Canada, that work so hard to finally give their MCAT? And they work so hard and they make so much dua. Oh Allah, please, Shaykh, Mufti, please make dua. Allah gets me, right, Shaykh Mateen? Hafiz Hamza, isn't it true? Sultan gets me accepted into med school. Gets me a beautiful, let me get into med school. They get into med school, and a few days later, like, man, this thing is so hard. It's so hard. I don't know why I'm doing this. You were praying for this for the last 8 years of your life. And the moment you have a child, you'll do the same thing again. Because you've realized, you've calculated the burden versus the blessing, and you found that the blessing is superior. What is the greatest blessing? What is it? Iman. If all of these are secondary blessings and they come with challenges, it also means Iman will come with an equal level challenge. And just because of the challenge, we will not remove the component of it being a blessing. A companion came to the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, inni uhibbuk. Like, he literally comes to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, I love you. And the Prophet says, Fandur mada taqul. Watch your words. Watch what you say. The Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, inni uhibbuk. I love you. What do you watch what I say? I'm telling you, watch what you say. And the third time he comes and says, inni uhibbuk. And the third time the Prophet says, well, if you're saying this, then prepare yourself for poverty that will come your way, the same way a spring of water comes down a hill, that you can't avoid it. Challenges, difficulties that will come your way, because we are believers. And the greater the blessing, the greater the burden. The greater the blessing, the greater the burden. But the burden never removes the blessing. It only allows you to appreciate it more. A mother will only appreciate the blessing of a child after giving birth to a child, because they went through a birth. The burden is what allows a person to appreciate the blessing. If we did not have to struggle for our faith, we would not appreciate our faith. So 3 things that we spoke about. There's always a behind the scenes. Number 1. Number 2 was what? Number 2. كذلك. It happens the way Allah wants it to happen. There is no system that Allah is confined by. There is no process that Allah is limited by like us. Number 3, third thing was what? Transitions cause fear, cause anxiety. Doesn't matter how much people love you, when you change for deen, people will leave you. People will forsake you. This has been the sunnah of Allah since the beginning of time. The people will turn their backs to you, but it's okay. فَلَيْتَكَ تَحْلُو وَالْحَيَاةُ مَرِيرًا وَلَيْتَكَ تَرْضَى وَالْأَنَامُ غِضَابُ وَلَيْتَ الَّذِي بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ عَامِرُ وبيني وبين العالمين خراب إذا صح منك الود فكل هين وكل الذي فوق التراب تراب. The poet says, as long as you are happy with us, Allah, everything else is secondary. May Allah make us amongst those people. This is why we came to this place, is to realize the beauty of Allah's miracle that can happen to Isa, to Maryam, to Elizabeth, can also take place in our families, in our homes. Not in the form of giving birth to a child without a husband, but in many other ways. Don't wait for that. That ain't gonna happen, right? Don't wait in the cave. That means you're delusional, right? So may Allah bless all of you for being able to sit down and wait in this heat. So now we're gonna go back to the bus.